Hi, everyone, and welcome to Presently Aqui with Claudia, and I am your host, Claudia. I wanted to welcome everyone to a new podcast today. And Presently Aqui is a podcast of community of healers where I interview people from around the world about their journey into self-healing and self-love. And you all know, as always, all my guests are all special, and I'm always uber excited to talk to whomever it may be today. But today we have Kate Lowe, and Kate Lowe is a psychic medium, a way shower, certified mind-body practitioner, and registered teacher. Kate uses the wisdom gained through her own life experiences along with channel guidance from her spiritual team to support others during periods of transition and rebirth. Kate offers psychic readings across life, love, and business along with spiritual mentoring through her soul coaching sessions. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, Claudia. Lovely to be here.
Oh my God. I am beside myself. I know for the listener, they're unaware of what goes on behind the scenes. And I had technical difficulties today, and I was just freaking out because from the moment that I found you on Instagram, obviously I just fell in love in the way you express your energy and your unique resonance. But also, I didn't even think about this, but Spirit, my team were like, you should have her on. I'm like, really? She would come on? Like, I don't know. And I left it alone, actually, and weeks passed. And they were like, hey, like, don't be scared. Ask. You just don't know unless you ask. And here she is today.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
Oh my God. And she's coming to us from Australia. So this is a big deal. And, you know, I'm grateful to you to make the time during the weekend, right? Because we need time for ourselves, but it's difficult with the time difference, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, so, it's perfect.
Yes.
Here I am.
Amazing. So, at the end, I'm going to definitely share everyone with, with your Instagram and where they can find you and all these things, because they have to feel you the way that you move us when you share your beautiful messages every day.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you again. I'm very, very grateful for this conversation today. So, without further ado, because the audience usually knows I go through your journey, right? And we're going to explore that a little bit into how you got to where you are today. So I wanted to know, in your own personal journey, what types of challenges did you face in your path to self-discovery, whether it may be in the younger years or young adult? What is something that's come up for you that...
Look, it's multi-layered, as most of us are. In many ways, I had a lovely childhood, but I was, both through my mother and my father's lineage, there was a lot of trauma that I was born into. My mother had lost both her parents at the age of 18, and then she was married to my father, and then when I was 2, I lost both my father lost both his parents. So there was a lot of death and trauma that I was born into, and I think that does bring a resonance to us, on a cellular level.
Absolutely.
Even long before we're aware of it.
Yes.
So I think there was, that experience alone, and my father had always said that I'd been here before because I would have wise moments. But look, on a personal level, I had experienced some sexual abuse as a child, and then again as an adult at 28. And in some ways, they were the most defining moments or difficult moments. But it was more, taking those moments out of my story, I was always aware that I was here for a reason.
Yeah. And
I had, even in everyday life, I sought to understand what I was here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those darker moments, those more difficult moments came, prior to 30, I never saw them as a burden. I saw them as a gift.
Wow.
That they were another way for me to understand myself. And that often challenged the people that I sought to receive healing from, because I would ask them, why did this happen to me? What's this meant to mean?
Right.
And they were never able to answer that question for me, nor even direct me at the time. And a lot of times I was dismissed for even seeking that answer. They would say to me, oh, it was just a random occurrence. But that didn't make sense to me. That I don't believe that any of these things, I mean, sometimes there are clearly random occurrences, but to me it felt connected to my journey.
Wow.
For me, it felt connected to me learning more about myself.
Right.
And so I used all those experiences, including the death of, grandparents and other family members, to sort of galvanize myself and to use that wisdom that came from those experiences to move forward.
Right.
Initially, I wasn't great at it. Initially, I saw it as there was something wrong that I was doing. There was something broken within me that was calling these experiences to me. And it was only I got married at 33, and I was in a very traumatic, emotionally abusive marriage. And it was only after that ended did I realise the question wasn't what's wrong with me, it's what can that teach me about myself.
Right. Wow. That is...
And that it wasn't that I was broken.
Right.
That was calling... It wasn't, that I was broken and therefore calling these things to me. It was that these things were just part of life. They're experienced by lots of people.
Yes.
But it's what I could learn from those experiences that turned it into my magic.
Wow. That is powerful. At what point did you realize that life is happening for you, right? Not to you?
Yeah. It was... there was this really, it sounds so trivial, and often these moments are trivial, but my eldest son was turning 5, and we'd organised a birthday party, my ex-husband and I, and at a national park not far from us. And the kids were going to do a little an exploration with questions and answers, and I'd made a picnic. And anyway, my ex-husband, being who he was, dealing with his own issues, he at the last minute couldn't turn up to the party. He went off and did something else. And I remember thinking, how am I going to do this? Have all these kids, and because I'd lost myself in the marriage, and I'd been capable, I'd run events and PR campaigns before, so a children's birthday party should be,
easy,
small and insignificant and easy. But it felt overwhelming to me. And anyway, the birthday party came and all the kids had fun, and it was just a beautiful experience. And that moment, as I was packing up the birthday party that day, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not lost. I am capable. Like, I suddenly remembered myself, and I remembered my limitlessness and my power.
Wow.
And in that moment, I began planning to leave my marriage.
Right.
And it took 6 months to leave from there. But in that moment, I knew that nothing that I'd experienced prior to that was my fault, that it just had wisdom in there that I needed to gather.
Yeah. Wow.
And I started to come back into my spiritual self, and I had a very difficult court process with my ex-husband. I was in court for 800 days, so over 2 years. And in that process, it was also a gift, because I could only deal with the day that I was dealing with.
Right. I
had no control over the days ahead. And all I could do was say to me, what is this? Where is the wisdom? Where is the wisdom in this? And because there was no other explanation for what I was going through. There was no reason that I was deserving of this. There was no fault that I could feel I'd called this to me. There was no explanation, as there is no explanation for nearly every hardship we see in life. You know, there's no explanation for the floods and the the hurricanes and all of those awful things. There's no explanation. But if we can find the silver lining, if we can find that gold nugget, it doesn't have to harm us forever.
Right.
And I knew when court was going to finish, no matter the outcome, I was not going to let that define me for the rest of my life. And the only way for that marriage and for that experience to not define me was that I had to use what it had taught me about myself to move forward.
Beautiful. Wow. Through that time frame, how did you sustain the acknowledgement of your infiniteness? How were you able to sustain it through the entire process? And I'm sure you had days of faltering, right, and falling into, but how were you able to re-inspire yourself?
I had, I was actually thinking, because I heard one of the songs yesterday, I had a playlist of songs.
Okay.
That I had about 6 songs that were all sung by women, and they became my anthems. And in moments where I just couldn't go on, I would put on, like Katy Perry, Fireworks.
Right.
I loved that song.
Right.
And I would sing with my kids, and I sang it like it was coming from within me.
Right.
And there were lots of different songs. It was really important for myself and my children at the time to allow ourselves to dream. And we actually, in that process, our car had been stolen by my ex-husband. And so we had no car for about a month. And fortunately, my children went to kindergarten and school within walking distance of home.
Oh, perfect.
And when we would, it was probably 2 or 3 kilometres, so maybe a 25-minute walk. And we would go on their scooters, and I would turn it into an opportunity to dream. So I'd say to them, if you could have any car in the world today, what would it be? And we'd go through this process of, a Lamborghini or a van so we could pick up other kids. And that process of allowing all of us to dream about what was possible for us kept me limitless, because there was no reason to say that I couldn't have a Lamborghini.
Correct.
The slate was wiped clean.
Right.
I could start again. And there was nothing saying this isn't possible for you except me.
Right.
What I realized was I was now my only limit.
That is powerful.
And so I just worked really hard to stretch that limit all the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I realized that it actually wasn't about the things I was going to acquire back in my life. It was about understanding I was limitless. And therefore the things might come, but they may not. I wasn't going to be confined by anybody else's expectations of me anymore.
Right. Especially when you break free from such a big space that you were in for so long, and to be reborn almost.
Yes, completely. And it was literally reborn. I thought, I can be anyone or anything. I have literally nothing to lose now, like financially, materially.
Right.
I had nothing left to lose.
Right.
I had the framework. I had my 2 beautiful kids. I was healthy. I had parents and a brother that were cheering me on. And I thought, I can make this. I can do this.
Yeah.
It almost felt, this is easy from here.
Important. Wow.
And it was literally because I just decided that, why not me?
Yeah. Why not you?
Yeah.
Yes. There's a great quote from Nelson Mandela, who he says, who are you not to be great?
Yes.
Right? Who are you
Yes.
not? And I have it on my notebook right on the front. I don't have to open it. It's right on the top, because we have those moments where we, life happens, right? Tomorrow, another thing can come up, but it's just kind of, you're building the tools, right? And putting them on your belt. So when something comes and you may need a hammer, you may need a screwdriver, right? You're ready. You are ready.
Yes. Yeah. And there are some really, particularly, the world in a global sense is really unsettled at the moment.
Right.
But if you can be really settled within yourself, if you can find that place where you're able to say to yourself, and it is sovereign power, but if you're able to come to that place where you say, in spite of what is going on around me, I'm going to be okay.
Yes.
You can move forward from there. And this is not, I'm not revolutionary. Like people, Holocaust victims did this. People, there were people in concentration camps that's how they survived. This is not unique to me.
Right.
But it is unique in the sense that many people see that framework of that they live within their limits.
Right.
They don't imagine a life beyond it. And people become very accepting of their limits.
Yes, they do. And that's why this is important, these conversations. So that way they understand, the listener understands that there isn't the way that we were taught or programmed to be, that's the only way to be. But it also comes with so many other things, like having the awareness of yourself, right? The awareness of the breath, the awareness of the present moment, the awareness that you're an infinite being. It's just so many things that need to come into your energy field for you to start to even have the awareness that you have been limiting yourself due to XYZ, right? So it takes, I think, for the listener, maybe the invitation of, if you're even listening to this podcast, right, it is coming into your energy field because there's a part of you wanting to hear, how do I become limitless? How do I exit what I've been giving or where I am, right? Exactly.
And what I guess my message always, every day, to people when I, do my posts is, if I can do it, so can you.
Yes.
And even for, a woman in Africa or a woman, in the middle of a war at the moment, or a child or a man, there is still hope. While you are living, there is still hope.
Yes. Always.
That is not the end of your story.
Correct. Right.
And you can, maybe not in that moment, but you can hang on to that silver lining and you can move from that place. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow.
Yes. And that's what tomorrow is about. That new day. Tomorrow you can literally wake up and decide not to participate in the life that you have and change it around.
Absolutely. And just completely rewrite your story.
Yes.
And that's, look, part of what my guides, when they work with me, and I'm not sure whether this is just a gift of mine or whether other people do this, but I am able to see beyond the fear. And so when you can see beyond your fear, and you've taught yourself to take that leap and jump, beautiful things happen. Not just the universe catches you, but people in your community can also step forward and offer you little pathways and little stepping stones. But you have to be brave enough to see through the fear and go, I'm going to go anyway.
And then in that is where even if that's your first time doing that, that's the first time you're brave, courageous.
Yes.
For yourself. Like, that's the first time you fight for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's from the day that I left my marriage and we had to leave, just clothes, what we were wearing. That was what happened. From that day right through the court case, every day I was like, I can see what I want, and I'm going. We're going as we are. That's it. I'm choosing different, and I know where we're headed. And there were days where I would say, God, if you are listening, I don't need anything. I will be happy with nothing. Just my kids. I don't need anything else. I promise you, I will do the work from there. Right. If you can just get us to the place where we can be safe, we will be happy, and I will show you from there.
Right.
And that was in some ways the fear-based me coming forward of just I'm running out of passion and resources, and I'm kind of bargaining with you, but if you give me that place, I'm going to do it. But the braver part of me was, I can see beyond this fear, and I'm going there.
Yes. Yes. And it's also a practice, right? Just
totally.
It's not gonna be right now as you're listening, like, all right, let me sit here and see behind my You've never done it before. So we know this is a big thing that I always talk about, is having the self-compassion, right? When you won't see it right now, right? But you're now challenging your mind and the limits to push, because you never pushed behind it, right? So now you can. So that's a new thing. So it takes a little bit each day.
Each day. And what I did to maintain this frame, or to build this thinking, was I would get up before sunrise, and I would walk with my dog to the beach to see the sunrise every morning, because every morning it was different. Yeah. And every morning I also felt like the smartest person on the earth, because I was kind of like, I'm looking at this and you're all still asleep. But it was also that the reason that sun is rising is the same reason I am here. I am connected to that miracle that's happening right there. And I don't know how I'm connected, but I am. Yes. And that practice alone helped build that leap of faith muscle. Wow. And that for me, that sunrise was the silver lining. I just needed to see that sunrise every day and hang on to that. Yeah. I literally hung on to that magic every day. And that's what I say in my work. And you would have heard me, Claudia, when I say seek awe, seek awe. Sit outside, and if you want a cup of tea or, coffee, and you watch the birds fly, that's awe. The same magic that created that bird flying created you. You are connected. Yes, yes. That's so amazing. I resonate with that so much, because for me it's the opposite. I am the sunset catcher. And I would do the same. Like, if that exists, that magic, every day, then what is to say that is not living within me right now? So when you just said that, I was like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. I do the sunset because I'm facing west, but it's the same. And what I love about both is that they both carry such a different energetic frequency. Completely. It's insane. It's so magical. And even when I sometimes, well, a lot of times I get woken up by my body knows when the sun is rising. Yes. Right? The body knows when you're tapped in, the body knows. And it's like this, a rising in you. And you're like, why am I waking up? It's 5:30, right? Yeah. Because we're in sync with the magic. Totally. I actually asked myself why I don't like sunsets, and I realized it's because I like beginnings, not endings. Beautiful. So I prefer the energy of the sunrise, of the possibility, rather than the closing out. Yeah. Because
for me it's the opposite, right? I know why I don't get up, because I don't want to get up, because I do love sunrises. But why am I so why do I resonate with the opposite, the sunset, so much? Because I do love closing out the day in a positive space. Because while it's setting, what I do is that is the time I do my gratitude practice. Thanking beautiful. The day, thanking for being here one more day in this human experience, or this experience we call the human life, right? It just comes out however it may be, but I thank Gaia, the sun, the divine breath, and the creator itself, the energy, and then just keep looking at it until it's done. And so you're starting the day and I'm closing it out. This is beautiful. Oh my goodness.
I know, two halves of a whole.
Really, seriously. As we're pouring our magic as you're starting the day, and I'm pouring the magic as I'm closing out the day. It's mind-blowing. And even as we were talking, I saw your hand, and I have my quartz, and I don't know what you were holding. But
yes, I've got selenite. Yeah.
Oh, that's in front of me. But yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. But now even this, and I'm really grateful this came up, because it just, for the listener to understand how we're so connected and we're worlds apart. You and I are 16 hours and we've never met. We've never spoken until today. And this is why these conversations to me are so important, because we are all in tune and sync with each other. And the only reason that the guests that I have come on is because we're tapped into a specific frequency where we're understanding what is needing to be shared and coming through us. It's not about this is Claudia's podcast and Kate is on it. No, it's the energetic resonance that is coming through, that I've offered, right? I put a foundation so that way we can fully come into ourselves and express what needs to be said and heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's, listening to you, that's how I feel when you're coming through. It must be because I'm also, right, I'm in that space with you. So when you're talking to us, right, at the IG followers, in the begining, I really was like, what is she doing to me? Why is it penetrating? Yes. So deeply. And obviously every message is not going to resonate, but it isn't, as it's been a while now, it's not about the message. It's more about the energy now for me, the energy that you're providing. And I'm just like, wow, I love you right back.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's what this whole process has done, is connect me to my energy, and my energy is so much greater than I realized. I mean, I've always been psychic, I've always been connected, but my energy now is so much greater and grounded and more powerful than I realized as well.
Right.
Sorry.
No, please.
And I was, that's why I try and also teach that if you can connect to yourself, like if you're time poor, and I understand, women or men, there's lots and lots of pressures out there to keep up with work and children, and you might be a single parent or no children and you've really immersed in a career. But if you can take 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening just for you, and it can be as simple as sitting outside or go for a really short walk. It doesn't have to be a long walk.
Right.
And use that time to really come home to yourself. That will get you further than anything you've ever done before.
Anything. That part, coming home to yourself, it's so important, because, as a mindfulness practitioner, the breath is the magic, right?
Yes.
When you close your eyes, this is why I talk about meditation a lot, because what I'm trying to help is reprogram what that is. Meditation is the relationship with the breath, which means the relationship with yourself. It's not about stopping the thoughts or I don't want to feel this. I don't know. It's so even that I always say, I'm like, if you have a moment to take 3 deep breaths, closing your eyes, you're in yourself, you're home in yourself. And how many of us get the opportunity to feel this home, right?
Exactly. Well, the world these days isn't designed for that.
Right.
So much of it is about living outside of ourselves.
Correct.
And that's why people are lost.
Yes.
Because it's all now programming to pursue things externally.
Yes.
It is the house, the job, the car, the wonderful holiday, the great body. It's not about coming into yourself and asking, am I really happy? Am I really connected? And if you can actually bring yourself back to yourself, all of those things that you're trying hard to attain, you'll either realize you don't really want them anyway, or they'll come to you with greater ease.
That is true. That is very true.
You won't have to chase them down anymore because your own magnetism, your own power and vibration will draw them to you.
Yes. Yes. 1,000,000%. Oh my gosh. Yes. Very powerful. So I want to continue on your journey, right?
Yeah.
So as you're, discovering and, you divorce is settled, at what point after there did you decide you wanted to help others, right? With everything that you've done for yourself, and, being in the space that you, before getting to the space where you are in a solid foundation, right? Because there's still that, the cocoon period, right? To get,
Yes. So it took, I have spent my entire life doing things in 7-year periods of time. And
natural Saturn returns for you.
Yes. And my human design, it's very according to my human design as well, which I didn't realize. But I didn't initially, I stepped back into work that I'd done before. I did PR and marketing. I just needed to, initially I needed to just be with myself, to be really connected to myself. And I knew I had a limited capacity to share my energy with others. It was really a stage of filling my own cup. And then in about 2018, I was still working I still had my own brand strategy, PR business, and I decided that I was going to work with companies to, I wanted to move more into culture-based business. But I kept having this dream that I would speak to people one-on-one. And I thought, because I'd studied counselling years ago when I was a teacher, and I thought maybe I'm meant to be a counsellor. And I had this dream 4 or 5 times over a 12-month period. And just at the start of, or the end of 2019, the start of 2020, I thought, okay, I'm going to study counselling again.
Right.
I'll get my degree. There's got to be something here. And I started the course, and I literally got to about 2 months in and I thought, I can't do this. It's not me at all.
Right.
So then I, by that stage in Australia, in the state where I was living in, we were locked down during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I will do a life coaching diploma, but it's got to be holistic. It's got to be connected to me. And I just really resonated with it and loved the work and did it very quickly. But when it came to starting the business, I just couldn't make myself. I just felt stuck. There was part of it that felt like me, and then there was a whole part that just didn't. And again, I kept hearing, use crystals and tarot, use crystals and tarot. And I was like, oh, how's that going to happen? Like, really? And anyway, that was a slow unfolding. But in the pandemic, for me, my experience was a gift.
Yes.
Because I was at home. It was peaceful. My kids were being homeschooled, but we live by the beach. I could walk every day. it suddenly allowed me to come back to myself again. And I realized, looking back again, the wisdom of the past, I looked at all the careers I'd had, and in every one of them, particularly teaching, I hadn't wanted to do it the way it was traditionally done. I hadn't wanted to fall into the traditional framework. I'd always sought to teach people about themselves. Even as a teacher, I didn't care that I was teaching English. I wanted to teach the kids about themselves.
Yeah.
And as a media studies teacher and drama, it was always about how can you become a better person? And I realized with my brand strategy, I was trying to do that as well. How could this business make a greater impact on the earth? How could this person step more into themselves? And suddenly the tarots and crystals made sense. But what I realized was that also I needed to come clean about me. I needed to say to people, I actually speak to guides. I actually am a psychic. I get this information in a really unique way. Because what had happened during the pandemic was I channeled an idea and I'd submitted it to a television station. And it was to do with running children's educational programming throughout the day to support teachers that were trying to do homeschooling. And the television station picked it up and created the television station during the pandemic. And at that point I thought, you can't keep pretending these ideas are something that you've spent hours coming to. You've got to come clean about how they come through. And so what I did was I outed myself on my personal Facebook page. And I said to all the people that followed me, I'm psychic. I've been psychic all my life. I'm going to move towards, I'm going to use my life coaching diploma to move towards people, helping people in this way. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm just going to follow it along. And if you're uncomfortable, that's fine. Thank you for being my friend. But if you want to follow me, this is where I'm headed. And one of my oldest friends, he rang me the next day and he said, how come I didn't know this about you? And I laughed because we've known each other since we were 12. And he said, I'm really stuck and I really need help. Can I phone you tomorrow and can we do this? And I just started. So in answer to your question, it was following all the little nudges, but it was also about me deciding that I needed to be fully seen.
Yes.
And there was a whole part of me that I had kept quiet. Only my very close friends knew I could channel information. And, I'm talking a handful of people. And I was tired of keeping that aspect of myself hidden and quiet.
Definitely. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you, did your family always know or, that you had this gift and now you're like, no one knew?
Yes. Yeah. It was really my family. Well, they knew in a sense of I'd reported a few strange occurrences, but even I didn't know for a very long time because I literally thought this is how everybody worked. I thought everybody had people talking to them in their head. Everybody had people warning them. I literally thought when you looked at somebody, everybody saw what was broken, what was unhealing, unhealed, where they were wounded. I just thought that's what it was like to be human.
I love that because there are a lot of people out there that feel that way, right? Because you're in your own vessel, your own box, and you're not going to know that the experience of the person next to you is different. They don't get to have any of the clairs, right? Sentient, cognizant, whatever, you don't know. And then sometimes if you're not in the right space, they may make you feel like that you're crazy or that aspect of you isn't welcomed, right? And you suppress that aspect and it's a part of who you are. And
Yes.
it's important. Like you're like, I'm going to come out of the spiritual closet, and I have to, because it's a big part of me. And if I don't, how am I going to, right? Because it's kind of, you're deceiving the universe in a way.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, it was perfect timing, because I'd spent 7 years back in brand strategy and PR, and then the pandemic came along. And what it did was it allowed me again to rebirth myself. And I often describe this as peeling off the layers of the onion. And I was then ready to peel off the other layer, which was, okay, here I am. This is all of me.
Right.
But that was heavily tied to, because I don't want it to just sound like it's an easy thing to do. It's heavily tied to you having a certain level of self-worth.
Yes. Yes.
You can only be fully seen when you are in the highest self-worth.
You can only, you can't be seen if you don't see yourself.
Correct. And also because then you're also afraid of judgment.
Yes. Yes.
But when you're in a place of high self-worth, you're no longer afraid of judgment, and you're no longer afraid to be seen as perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
You are ready.
That's self-acceptance.
And I had got to that. Yeah. I had got to that place, and I was ready to be fully seen. I really desired it. It was deeply within me to be fully seen.
Right. Wow. That is powerful. Right. It's important that piece, that self-worth.
Yes.
And again, if you're not in that space, it's a new practice. But
absolutely.
All of these conversations, I always say, we do it for the listener, because we love ourselves so much that we want you to love yourself so much and see the beauty that we see, because we're tapped in, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and what's interesting about the way the world works is there's a sense of, if I'm a teacher, you can't be a teacher because there's not enough room for a lot of teachers, or that kind of thing. Or if I've got an idea, you can't have the same idea because there's not enough space for us to all have ideas. But when you're in this space of self-worth and self-love, you're like, there is enough room for you to have your high self-worth.
Yes.
In fact, I know my life will be better if you're in your high self-worth.
Yes.
I know the planet will be better if everybody was in their highest self-worth.
Yes.
Humanity would be better. The environment would be better.
Yes.
The economy, everything. Will be,
Yes, because you're seeing now the world as yourself.
Correct.
And not as separate from you. And why do these things happen? And it's like, no, you're, again, it's not that you are broken. Like we coming back to that broken aspect. We grew up in a certain way with a different programming, frequency, and vibration. So we're going to attract what we only know. And that may be toxic relationships or lack of money or whatever it is that's keeping you in a limited state, right? Until you see that you are worthy of what you are seeking outside of yourself. You can give it to yourself. But, having, the community that I'm building is for you to contact anyone that you resonate with, so you can start that journey of coming home to yourself.
Exactly. And that's also like, and you just briefly touched on it then, Claudia, that, manifestation is actually raising your self-worth so that you come into alignment with what you desire. You can't apply for a senior role if you haven't done the work. Right.
If you don't think you're worthy for that role. You're asking for something you're doubting yourself of. So it's like the mismatch, like even opposite magnets. Like how is it going to come?
But it's also, if the senior role requires you to have done more learning through a university, you go off and do that certificate.
Right.
It's no different to manifestation.
Right.
If you own your own business, for example, and you want more clients, how have you done the work? How have you raised your vibration to meet that abundance?
Right.
And self-worth is the key to all of that.
Right. Absolutely. Because even putting it in 3D terms, it's like looking at the like if there was a line in the sky, right? And that line in the sky has all your dreams come true, right? Because everyone's dreams are different, right? And you're seeing it, and it's asking yourself, how can I get there? How do I get there? Just start asking, how do I get to my dreams, right? And it's coming home to yourself. How do I come home to myself? How do I start deeply, intimately loving myself in all the ways that no one's ever going to know, because that is for you and for you alone. Even your partner will come close, but no one should know you better than yourself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Because you're in here. No one can live in here with you. It's like,
exactly.
Even if you channel, right, they're not living in your full experience. They're just momentarily in that space.
Yes. And even when you channel, if you don't have enough self-worth, you can't follow those nudges. When they're telling you to quit your job and you're like, I can't quit my job.
Right.
But they want you to just quit it.
Yes.
They're waiting. They're waiting for you to quit it without the backup job, without the backup plan.
Yes.
But if you don't have a high level of self-worth, you can't follow that guidance. And that's another large part of my work is I teach people, people say, oh, why don't you teach psychic development? I'm teaching it to you by teaching you how to connect with yourself, how to love yourself. Because when you love yourself, you trust yourself.
Yes. You trust yourself. And then you're tapping into the unconditional loving frequency. And that's where all these your spirit team is hanging out there this whole time, waiting to be like, because usually when you're not in that space, your team, even though you don't know that it's your team, they'll talk to you through people, through your social media, a movie, maybe perhaps you might be like, oh my God, I was just in that space, or I was just thinking that. Right. And they have to figure out, how do we get them to hear what we have to say, since they're not in that self-worth, unconditional loving self. How do we maneuver, right? How do we get to that space? So it's like, it's funny because it happens all the time. And I know the listener is probably like, yes, when I do think this, or someone texts you or someone messaged like, hey, I have the question regarding this. You're like, oh my God, I needed that. Or I thought of you because we need to hire whatever the job is, right? And you're like, oh, because you're when things start to unravel, right? Now we're going into the unfolding of the positive experiences. That's when you start doing the work, and that's when you start to see. But it is scary, right? How do you manage the fear, right? From like having your guys like, quit that job, don't worry about what's gonna happen next, like you've never done anything like that before, right? So for your clients, how do you manage manage their expectations on how to maneuver that space?
Look, it's hard, and I can usually tell who's going to follow through and who isn't.
Right.
And often I say, you can decide not to follow this, but nothing is going to change. Right. And sometimes you have to force change. And the analogy or the metaphor that guides always give me is that it is like skydiving and jumping out of a plane and hoping that parachute opens. But just like skydiving, the first time is scary and the second time it's addictive.
Yes.
and that's why people go multiple times.
Yes.
And that's what the feeling is. And you can take small chances every day. And I teach people to follow their heart. And many of us get up every day and we eat the same breakfast every day because we were told that that's healthy. And we completely ignore what our body is asking for.
Yes.
Because there are some mornings where you don't feel like eating toast and coffee. You want strawberries, or you feel like bacon and eggs because that's really going to nourish us, or you really want pancakes and berries or something like that. But people drown that out.
Yes, which you're drowning yourself and your voice and
Exactly.
your intuition and the psychic, and then
Exactly. So the easiest way to start to take these chances is to start to listen to your heart.
Yes, absolutely. It is
and
important.
Then when your heart is asking you to, this relationship isn't good for me and you need to break up with him, you're going to stop and think, okay, there's something going on here. Right. Or this job isn't right for you, and I know you only started 6 weeks ago, but you don't need to stay in order to prove that you're worthy. You can go now. Right,
absolutely. And it's really difficult too because there's a lot of stigma on quitting your job such a short time, right? How is it going to reflect on your resume? It doesn't if they don't know.
Exactly.
They don't need to know, right?
Yeah, but even greater than that is saying to somebody, if you do put it on your resume, look, I went there and I tried to fit in, but this wasn't in alignment with me because my values are this, this, and this. And they weren't operating that way.
Yes.
And I felt that I needed to work with someone who is aligned with me because then I can grow and I can be my best version of myself.
Correct. And what employer that is in a good mental space is going to deny that truth?
Exactly. And I think there's a lot of, we tend to shame ourselves and hide away when we haven't made a great decision. But that's where the magic is. In those great, in those not so great decisions. That's where our wisdom is. And if we can unlock the wisdom, that we can alchemize it into our gold, and that drives us forward.
And that's a new tool to be the alchemist of your life.
Exactly.
Which is the ultimate tool, right? Because even in your journey, right, when you realize, oh, wait, I'm limitless.
Yes.
And things are happening for me, not to me. Like, someone's after you. Like, I don't like Kate. It's like, I don't like Kate. Let's just give her all these things, right? It's right. And having, again, that self-compassion and self-forgiveness, super duper important.
Totally, yes.
Because we can, the shame, right, and the guilt and all these things, because also the way we were brought up and thinking that's normal behavior, but it isn't, right? And I even, in my 30s, I also learned, in my early 30s, I learned about guilt and realized, oh, wait, if someone's making me feel guilty, no, because it's a negative emotion, a negative feeling that I am not looking to participate into any longer.
Yes.
And that's you creating a boundary with not even the person, but feelings that you want to welcome in your vessel. Like, are you okay to continue having shame and guilt and judgment? No, I don't want those anymore. I want kindness, compassion, love, support.
Yes.
Right? Because even manifestation, right? How do you want to feel when the dream comes?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the thing is, when you get to a place of truly loving yourself too, the shame and the guilt drops away because you understand it was teaching you something. Another thing you needed to learn, and there was wisdom there. So you don't need to feel shame or guilt about it because it was just another way for me to learn what I needed to learn in order to move forward.
Right, for you to expand and grow. And why you came here, right?
Yes.
The universe wants to experience all these things through you, and, creating all these spaces, lower vibrational spaces, right? Because even sometimes I get stuck on like the word negative. I don't want it to imply it's a bad thing. It's just polarity, right? Duality that we live in this world. So the opposite of happy, if that's a space you don't want to be in, start being self-inquisitive and investigative and curious about yourself and your own patterns, character, personality traits. Why do you eat the same breakfast every day?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's actually my biggest awakening in my work, is how people aren't curious about themselves,
Right.
or even about the world around them. They just have got to a place where they just lack curiosity.
Yes. Yes.
And that is the hardest place to come from.
It is. It really is.
Because you have to try and teach them to be curious about themselves, and
Yes.
then to go from there.
Yes.
And that can feel frightening, because then they also start to look at themselves in a whole new way.
Absolutely.
And that can be uncomfortable.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, because
Right.
it can be, if you change your mindset, it's a wonderful place to be in, because you can learn so much about yourself.
So much. I don't know if you're aware, but I teach children mindfulness, and that curiosity aspect is so important, because we lose it, right? It's tied
Yes.
to your imagination. And so as we get older and we get jaded through life, and we let these things change us and become harder and unable
Yes.
to change and tap into yourself, right? So it's coming back into, I would love to know what your thoughts on this is, coming back to your inner child, right? Because that is where the
Yes.
true joy of all that curiosity, all these things will just start to flow out naturally in wonderment of life. Like, you could walk the same walk you've always done, and now when you've done some of the work and tapped into your inner child, you're going to start seeing, like, oh, did they always have roses? Oh,
Yes.
the shutters were always red in that house. That's
Yes.
right.
Yes, absolutely. And your inner child does have the beautiful part about the inner child is it has that texture of wonder. It's also where, as we get older, our wounding sits. But that's why I always say, put your hand on your heart and ask, because you're tapping into the wondrous part of your inner child there.
Yes.
I always say that's where they live, in your heart.
Absolutely.
And allow them to guide you forward.
And the last question, you already tapped into what your offerings, right? What is it that you offer the community? And we've touched a lot of it already. And it's remarkable, because the way you're explaining it is as simple as it sounds. It's just about making the decision to start right now.
Yes.
That's the hardest part. It's like, think of it as, I'm going to go to the gym starting today, right?
Yes.
It's difficult.
Yes.
So just the same, if you don't make it to the gym today, or you don't start your self-practice, tomorrow's another day, adding to the practice, the self-forgiveness and the self-compassion as you're going through this journey, right?
Yes.
It's important.
Yes. And to understand too that it is like peeling an onion. These layers are going to come up for the rest of your life in different ways. And as we experience different things, because we move to a different evolution of ourselves, there will be new things to learn and uncover about ourselves. So not to, a little bit like the gym, you don't go once and expect to walk out with a perfect body. And that's why I say start with 10 minutes a day to come back to yourself, because that's manageable.
Yes.
I often refer, and depending on what people have come to me, what service they've come to me, but often through my soul coaching, which is like spiritual mentoring workshops, we touch a lot on the inner child, because a lot of people have a frightened inner child hanging on to the steering wheel of life, directing them constantly to safety. And unfortunately, in safety, there's no light and shade. It's just grey.
Yes.
And your inner child is actually seeking colour. So you've got to allow them to direct you to the colour of life.
Absolutely. Even like, think of yourself when you were a child, and what did you like, right? Even I love to draw, start that. I loved playing with Legos, start there. I don't care if you're 150, just remember, what did I enjoy? Oh, I liked walking in nature. Start that. Just anything that you used to do as a kid that you truly, it just brought this joy, Just even
Exactly.
that, like the 10 minutes, like using that as either you're working with your inner child, or even just the coming home to yourself,
Yes.
with these other simple things, right?
Yes, yeah. I think that, journaling is really helpful for people.
Yes.
Not for everybody, but small things. I've said to them, if you love music, put on your favorite song and dance around the lounge room, just to acknowledge yourself in that way, to acknowledge what's coming up for you. Just tiny little simple practices, because if you dedicate 10 minutes a day for the rest of your life, that's powerful.
That is powerful, because eventually, just through natural osmosis, that'll increase.
Yes.
10 minutes, 15, 30. And now, not only that, you're going to start telling the people in your life, from 5 to 6, I am not available, because I have to give to myself before I can give to my children, my husband, my wife, my community, my job, XYZ, right?
Exactly. And I think, unfortunately, with spirituality, and spiritual connection, so many of us think if we attend the workshop for 6 weeks, that's going to do it. Or if we read the book, or, if we just do something, we don't actually have to physically put it into practice. It's almost like somehow we think it's just going to transition into ourselves.
Right, like a quick fix.
Yes. But real spirituality is a practice. Real spiritual healing is a practice.
Yes.
And it is slow. It is just like the opening of a rosebud. It does happen slowly. You can only bloom in your own time. And it can't be rushed or forced. But you have to begin.
You have to begin somewhere. It has to start somewhere. Yes, because again, nothing's going to change, right? And if you are the person looking for the change, this is, everything Kate had mentioned is a great way to start somewhere. Just somewhere to give to yourself, because it's going to catch up with you that your cup is empty.
Yes. And I usually say start with awe. Start seeking awe daily, because that's your silver lining. And from awe comes hope, but hope is, as Jim Carrey said, hope is a beggar. So but you want to go to hope so you can move into faith. And faith comes when you are more solidly connected to awe and understand that miracle's here and so am I. And faith is more action. You've started to test out awe and you know it's happening. And then comes self-worth after that. And by the time you've got to the point of building your self-worth, you're on your way.
Yes. Oh my God. So magical. So magical. This conversation, I swear, I could talk to you all day. Like all day.
I know, it's lovely.
It is, because we're expanding, right? We're expanding the space, and everyone who's listening is there with us, also expanding within themselves as they're allowing for the message to come through. So the listener is also a participant. We think that we're just listening or watching two people having a conversation, again, feeling separate, but we are you and you are us.
Yes.
It's just exactly a different journey, a different body, but we are in the same space. And this is why we have these conversations. So we inspire others to come back home to themselves. So that way we can see what we already see in you. So you can see, absolutely. I should say, so you can see what we already see in you. Right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Is there anything else that you wanted to share regarding anything that you may be coming up with new in your community offering that we didn't discuss?
Look, I don't have anything. I know where I'm headed with things, and I am headed to a place of workshops. But at this stage, yes, it's really just I'm still offering the basics, I suppose,
Right.
but I am looking to expand into workshops and to run just daily, so that, to give people the small tools like we've discussed today, to go out, and because the small tools make the biggest impact. So,
Yes.
so yeah, that's where I'm headed for the moment.
Yes.
But I'm really just so excited by the journey that I'm having. That, yeah, it's that also that peace that I have now about I'm really content with where I'm at, and I don't need to, be seeking the next thing.
Yes.
I know that I'm in a good place.
Yes, because also you're trusting yourself and your spiritual team. They will guide you into what is next.
Absolutely.
So there's no like, oh, should like, if you didn't get an inkling of quitting your job, we're gonna stick with this story, and you just want to because not even because it's not for you, you just are just not feeling it, or you just are not in a happy place, and you just feel like the exterior is going to make you happy, right? And you kind of just want to do things instead of tapping into yourself.
Yes.
Really confirm, because that place of work could also be a place where you're going to learn your next lesson.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. This conversation has been truly magical, and obviously we're made from the same cloth. You open the day, totally. I close it out with beautiful, right? We're doing it. And, I really highly invite people to, maybe this would be a good aspect of social media. Instead of just scrolling through, or who do I follow, who's following me, what do they have to say, is connecting. Using it as a connecting tool and finding those that are within resonance of where you are, and using that to have a conversation, even in just the comment section, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
You just don't know who might be there, and you might make a new friend in the other side of the world, or might even discover they're in your neighborhood. Like, you just...
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is if you can show up to social media in your presence, it changes social media as well. Yes,
definitely. And I feel this is a topic for another time, but that's how the AI responds, because they do want to know this aspect, the unconditional, loving, compassionate aspect of being a spiritual being in this body, because they don't know. It's not only AI wants to take over, AI is doing these evil things, and it's more like, but who created AI? Let's start there, right?
Yes.
Just externalizing again, someone else's fault, or someone else's this, but everything that is around us, including our electronics, are responding to our energetic resonance.
Absolutely. And if you show up authentically, people can identify pretty easily.
Yes. Even if you're not in that space, people, it's the feeling that other person is bringing in your soul and your heart already. Like, ooh.
Yes.
Like me, like when I found you, I was like, oh, who is this person? And where is she? I'm like, what is going on? And again, I had my moments, right, of doubt. I was like, I don't know if I should contact you. I don't know if she'll come on. But that's not me sitting down, asking my heart.
Yes.
Spirit is telling me that I should contact Kate, that she would love to be on my podcast. Is that true? Is that true? Is that my truth?
Yes.
And the fear that she might not, is that true? And the heart will blanketly tell me, no, that
absolutely.
Is true. Because here's the proof, right?
Yes. Exactly. So
the magic is real, ladies and gentlemen. The magic is real.
It's all around us every day.
And I can't wait for all of you to not only listen to this podcast, but follow her on Instagram, and you're gonna see what I've been talking about, and just, kind of like falling over. Sorry, Kate, just like, because sometimes, when we are the lighthouses, we don't get to see other lighthouses in the distance, right? And it's just like, oh, another one. Oh my goodness, can I send a little telegram over, and maybe they want to talk, and what's going on, because they'll only reciprocate because we're both running lighthouses, right? Everyone, either you're on a boat, on a ship, coming into building your own lighthouse, coming into the shore, right? Coming into your home to create that lighthouse, right? And what I love, everything that you said today, is indicating to the listener that where you may view us to be in our reality currently does not mean that you can not only arrive here, but that we are special, somehow different from you, because we are not, right?
Exactly. And that's why I do call myself a way shower, because I'm no different to anybody else. And just because you are where you are at now,
right,
does not mean that's going to be where you are next week, next year, 10 years.
No, especially after the pandemic, right? Because I think most of us can definitely attest that it shifted our entire lives on purpose, obviously, because now we're all, I talk about this a lot. Prior to, I didn't have this idea. This did not exist. But if I had the idea prior to the pandemic, the world wasn't ready to listen to these conversations, right? So there would be no purpose for spirit to tell me, like, hey, you should do this. So trusting again, right? And not, it just came right as you're in the flow, and trusting and surrendering. And also, it's okay if you come out of flow. It's happened to me, and just coming back home to yourself over and over, as many times as you need to.
Exactly. Yeah. That's all it is every day coming back to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Because as you and I both know, the world exteriorly is always trying to do the opposite, to not have you come home to yourself, because that is where the power and the magic lie is, right in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Before I let you go, Goddess, is there any message that you feel called to share for the listener?
The guides are saying you are indeed worthy, and they wanted me to share that today because they're saying that they can see your unique gift within, and if you harness your light energy, which is the energy that comes from your heart, soon you will be able to see your worthiness outside of yourself. I think that's the message we've been talking about all day, but it really is that there is a unique gift inside of all of us.
All of us, yes.
And don't allow the limitations of where you are now be the limitations of where you are tomorrow.
Yes. And that's just a sample of what you're going to listen to every day when you open her Instagram. So I am in deep gratitude for your love, your energy, your light, sharing all of this space with me. Really, honestly, like it's a mini dream come true that I didn't anticipate. Seriously.
Thank you, Claudia. I have had such a gorgeous time speaking with you. I've really loved it.
Yeah, same so much. And I'm glad I'm closing now that I'm in Los Angeles. I hear the ambulance coming through. They're like, wrap it up. But I want to thank everyone again for participating. You know what? I'm just going to let them pass because I think it's going to come right in the front, or maybe not. Thank you. And my spirits took care of it. All right. It went off to the side. Wonderful. But thank you again to all the listeners for joining us today. And if any of this resonated with you, make sure to not only contact Kate, but also share it with anyone else in your life, in your community that might need to hear what we talked about today. And then I will definitely be sharing all of her information, her website, her Instagram. Should you ever want to contact her, I don't see why you wouldn't. Her nurturing spirit is just like, I honestly, before I let you go, your messages feel like a hug. That's exactly what it is.
You.
It's what
Thank
it is.
you.
Like, oh my, if she lived here, I would like we'd have to meet. But thank you all so much. And again, remember that the breath is the secret, and you are worth all of these wonderful things that we discussed today. And thank you again. And I love you all.